This is now known around the league. And it's telling if DeWanna Bonner says she chose the Fever over the Lynx and Mercury to win now.
Minnesota fans, Cheryl Reeve thought she had Bonner locked down, with the deal nearly done. Then, out of nowhere, the Fever swooped in, stealing Bonner and derailing the Lynx's entire offseason plan. Reeve is furious she lost Bonner to Clark in Indiana.
But the Lynx were there. So to choose the Fever over them is saying something. And I think all of those players choosing the Fever said all you need to know.
Bonner had been dropping hints for months, wanting to win now and barely reacting to the Mercury trading for her fiancé. Minnesota ignored the signs, thinking they had it locked, while Bonner played chess and Reeve was stuck on checkers.
I'm glad that this really worked out, because this almost turned really ugly for the WNBA, man. You talking about Nafisa Collier being on a revenge tour. That was definitely going to be a revenge tour worth watching, man, because they were going to mop the league.
This wasn't a last-minute move. The Lynx had been planning it for months, confident Bonner was their missing piece. They'd already envisioned championship parades, expecting her to join Collier and McBride for a title run.
Man, I want y'all to hear this. All 5 of last season's regular starters left during this offseason free agency. They're talking about the Connecticut Sun here, including 3 who had spent their entire careers, a collective 23 seasons with the organization. One of those players, Alyssa Thomas, sought a move to a championship contender, Phoenix, with superior facilities.
And if you need proof of just how deep Minnesota was invested in this plan, they even considered trading for Alyssa Thomas, Bonner's fiancée, in a last-ditch effort to sweeten the deal. That's the basketball equivalent of buying someone a house before the first anniversary. Risky, desperate, and ultimately pointless.
The Lynx also explored trading for Thomas, league sources told The Athletic, and looked at signing her fiancé and former Sun teammate DeWanna Bonner.
While Reeve and the Lynx made their pursuit obvious, Indiana stayed quiet, building relationships behind the scenes. As Minnesota made a spectacle, the Fever played a patient, precise game, setting up the perfect heist.
Nonetheless, the other things or other desires or other factors, as they say, I'm pretty sure that's the key factor of why she left and why she went to the Fever instead of the Lynx.
And just like that, it happened. Bonner turned down Minnesota's offer and chose to team up with Caitlin Clark in Indiana. The Lynx were left scrambling, Reeve fuming. What was supposed to be their biggest offseason acquisition had just slipped through their fingers, and there was nothing they could do to stop it.
Now, thinking of the Lynx, man, that would be a disgusting team if she ended up going to the Lynx, man. Can you imagine Alyssa Thomas going to the Lynx, allowing Nafisa Collier to play the 4, and then you even have Bonner there as well?
DeWanna Bonner played Cheryl Reeve and the Lynx front office like a fiddle, and they never saw it coming. The wildest part? Bonner had been dropping breadcrumbs about her true intentions for months, and not a single person in Minnesota picked up on them. The signs were there, right in front of their faces. If only they had been paying attention.
Because I can't even imagine Fee at the 3, and then you have Bonner and Alyssa at the 4 and the 5. Oh my goodness, bro. You could tell the Lynx knew that the Indiana Fever were piping up as far as grabbing some of the best players to make that organization run like a well-oiled machine, man.
At last season's WNBA All-Star Game, Bonner and Caitlin Clark had deep talks, hinting at something big. While Minnesota thought they had Bonner, she was already planning a future with Clark in Indiana.
All-Star Game. Now, there's certain pictures coming around, floating around online of Caitlin Clark and DeWanna Bonner at the All-Star Game, chopping it up, kind of insinuating, not saying that this facts, that this whole situation kind of could have been in the works already.
Some last-minute change of heart. It was a masterfully executed move, months in the making. Bonner let Minnesota think they had the upper hand, but in reality, she had already bought into the Fever's vision long before free agency even opened. While Reeve and the Lynx were busy plotting their championship run, Bonner was quietly buying into Indiana's long-term blueprint.
Most of the teams do realize that is about to happen, so they are strengthening up their roster. And that move right there would have been crazy, fam. That would have been a crazy move. Having Alyssa Thomas and DeWanna Bonner on the links, that would have been unfair because then you have Fee and then you have McBride. Oh my goodness, dog.
Phoenix thought they had it locked with the Alyssa Thomas trade, thinking Bonner couldn't resist. But she wasn't tempted at all, leaving their plan in ruins and them scrambling to figure out what went wrong.
Now, from the jump, I felt like Alyssa Thomas and DeWanna Bonner was going to be that other couple that always stayed together. But, you know, DeWanna Bonner pulled a rabbit out of the hat on me, man, and said, hey, I'm going Indiana.
Minnesota had every reason to believe they were the perfect fit. They had the championship pedigree, a seasoned coach in Cheryl Reeve, and a roster packed with talent ready to win now. On paper, it made perfect sense for a 37-year-old veteran chasing one last ring before calling it a career. But Bonner saw something different, something both Minnesota and Phoenix somehow overlooked.
But Phoenix also heavily courted Bonner, league sources said, yet the desire to win immediately, among other factors, led Bonner to the Indiana Fever.
In her statement, Bonner didn't focus on joining a powerhouse, but on Indiana's potential to grow the game. She saw an opportunity to build something special, while others saw a work in progress.
Now, I wonder what the other factors were. I mean, going to the Lynx is definitely a win right now situation. It's mainly the other factors that made her go to the Indiana Fever.
The Indiana Fever just went from a WNBA afterthought to the hottest ticket in town. DeWanna Bonner's decision wasn't just your typical free agent move, it was a statement. When she signed with Indiana, she wasn't chasing an easy ring. She was looking to build something that would transform a struggling franchise into a legitimate powerhouse. And if you ask her, that journey to greatness starts right now.
We know she was dealing with a lot coming off our national championship game, entering the WNBA. Big time transition. I understand that, but we also have to hold these WNBA referees accountable because they played a big factor in the assault Caitlin Clark took for the 2024 season because they did not call a bunch of calls that should have been fouls, bro.
The WNBA has a major referee problem, and Caitlin Clark's rookie season is where this whole controversy sparked. I'm about to show you footage that's going to completely shift how you see her battles in the league. From dubious technical fouls to blatant missed calls on clear contact, the pattern is hard to ignore. And here's the thing, it matters because no matter how much the Indiana front office improves, whether through coaching changes or bringing in better free agents, nothing will actually change if the officiating stays this way.
Now we know the Indiana Fever front office did everything they had to do, put the right pieces around Caitlin Clark, make sure they make it far in the playoffs and possibly get a WNBA championship.
Clark's experience isn't just her own struggle. It's exposing bigger issues that could define the future of the entire WNBA.
Prime example, what really made me start thinking about this was the DJ Currington situation. They didn't call nothing on that for her poking Caitlin Clark in the eye, and that really had me thinking, like, how many times did they actually, drop the ball and didn't call stuff against Caitlin?
Have you ever watched a basketball game and felt like the refs were just gunning for one player? That's exactly what went down with Caitlin Clark last season, and I've got the proof to back it up. When Clark entered the WNBA, viewership skyrocketed, record-breaking numbers everywhere. But while all eyes were on Clark, something strange was going on with the way the games were being called.
Caitlin got called for a technical for hitting the back of the backboard, but somebody viciously clotheslined her. We're not getting a call for that. And I just wondered, if they would have done it a little different, just start calling stuff for people assaulting Caitlin Clark, that would have kind of minimized the pressure and minimized the assault I believe she would have took for the 2024 season. And going into this new season, once again, they're held responsible, bro.
The story around Clark's rookie season was all about her adjusting to the physicality of the pro game, but that's a huge oversimplification of what actually went down. Refs consistently turned a blind eye to obvious fouls. She was getting crushed on drives, shoved on jumpers, and roughed up off the ball. Remember that offensive foul call on June 13th against Seattle? Clark made a basic dribble move, yet the whistle blew out of nowhere. The commentators were left scratching their heads. "I'm not seeing the foul there," one said, as the replay showed barely any contact at all.
Second personal. Let's take a look.
I think we ought to be able to see it from this angle. I don't see how that's an offensive foul to me.
Now, that was called an offensive foul on Caitlin Clark. Do we all remember that play? How was that an offensive foul, bro? How remotely is this right here an offensive foul, dog? How? Like, I'm just not getting that. But that was the call that was put on Caitlin Clark.
This wasn't a one-off thing. It was a pattern. Watching her season felt like watching a game where the umpire was clearly biased, like the whole thing was rigged. When you go back and review the footage, it's impossible to ignore. The way Clark was officiated was just different. Aja Wilson and Brianna Stewart made the same exact moves and got favorable calls, while Clark did the same and ended up with a foul.
I am not letting up on them damn WNBA referees because they are the biggest haters when it comes to Caitlin Clark, bro. I know we got haters everywhere, but nobody is worse than these WNBA referees.
Defenders treated Clark differently because they knew they could get away with more. They bumped her on drives, invaded her landing space on jumpers, and hand-checked her nonstop, all without facing any consequences.
Unnecessary. Kennedy Carter.
Seattle, and all of a sudden, we're pretty close. This has been as close as it's been all second quarter long, 44.
Clark's usage rate and driving frequency should have meant way more free throw attempts for someone with her offensive workload. Averaging just 3.7 free throws a game is ridiculous. Other rookies with similar styles were getting to the line nearly twice as often, yet Clark missed out on countless free throw opportunities that should have been hers.
Because there was also a stat that came out a few weeks ago that said Caitlin Clark received 17% of the WNBA's flagrant fouls this season, and 80% of those flagrant fouls were committed by the Chicago Sky against Caitlin Clark.
The impact wasn't just about the stats. Adjusting to a faster, stronger league is tough enough. But realizing the refs are using a completely different rulebook for you? That messes with your confidence, decision-making, and rhythm. And as the season went on, it only got worse. Once defenders realized they could get away with extra contact, they went after her even harder, with no consequences in sight.
But when you have the face of your league getting nearly 20% of all flagrant fouls called against her, that is an issue. And that's not just an issue that the players have to work out. That is from top down. That goes to the commissioner level. Like, that is the level that needs to control these kinds of things.
The targeting of Caitlin Clark went from bad to straight up dangerous. And I'm not even exaggerating here. There's footage that shows Clark getting completely flattened while driving to the rim, and not a single whistle from the refs. How is that even possible in professional basketball? Take a look at this.
They're going to pick up Caitlin Clark from the second she touches the basketball. That's what Burton did there. All over Caitlin going inside. I mean, that's a foul.
When you watch the games, it's clear. Clark was playing under a whole different rulebook than everyone else. In one jaw-dropping game, she drives toward the basket and gets absolutely leveled. You can literally hear the commentators shouting, "That's a foul!" in disbelief. But the refs, they just stood there, whistle silent, like nothing even happened.
She's coming down the court. Bow. It looked like Morena did that to her, bro. But that's what I'm talking about.
This quickly turned into a disturbing pattern. Clark was knocked to the floor 3 separate times in one game, and not one whistle was blown. It was like watching someone walk a tightrope with the safety net taken away on purpose. Every fan watching at home could see it unfold right before their eyes, screaming at their screens in frustration.
A tag on his page stated, "This has been pretty much the whole game. No call fouls for Caitlin Clark. The WNBA and their officials now know how to screw up a good thing."
The contrast in how players defended Clark compared to other guards tells the whole story. Take Marina Mabrey, for example. Her defensive approach against other players versus how she guarded Clark was like night and day. Mabrey figured out fast that she could get away with a lot more physical contact on Clark without facing any consequences from the refs. Remember that Carrington incident?
You can see Caitlin comes off a screen here. She dribbles back to her right hand, and then she's going for the pass to Aaliyah Boston when DeWanna jumps up, seemingly looking to try to steal the ball, and then hits her in the face. Caitlin is on the ground, the ball goes in the opposite direction, and the Connecticut Sun score. The internet doing what the internet does, they found a second angle to this play, and this is where a lot of fans were saying that this was intentional. It's in slow motion, as you can see here. DeWanna is going up for the ball, she misses, and then her hand bends down like this and goes straight into Caitlin's eye.
Clark got straight up poked in the eye. A dangerous move and a clear foul by any standard. But the refs just swallowed their whistles and didn't even review the play. Meanwhile, in that same quarter, another player got called for barely grazing an opponent's arm. The double standard was so blatant, it felt like watching two completely different sports being played on the same court. It got so obvious that even former WNBA refs spoke out. One former ref pointed out that the officiating standard for Clark was noticeably different compared to everyone else. And that's not coming from just some upset fans. That's from someone who knows the rulebook inside and out.
The tag on this will say, "How can the WNBA justify these referees? Caitlin Clark gets blatantly fouled twice, no call. I guess that's the playoffs, but these are bad."
What we witnessed wasn't just a few missed calls. It was a dangerous pattern that put Clark's safety at risk. Each ignored infraction only emboldened defenders further. What began as extra contact quickly escalated into dangerous plays. Some of these actions resembled football tackles more than basketball defense. When refs don't protect the player, the physicality only intensifies. Clark wasn't just facing tough defense. She was in real danger of injury while the refs stood by, letting it happen game after game.
You come in as a rookie and like you said, like you're trying to figure out a new environment, new teammates. Like you don't want to say too much, you don't want to say too little, and it's just so hard.
What if I told you that Caitlin Clark's greatest challenge wasn't on the court, but within the locker room? That her most significant achievement wasn't smashing records, but building connections? How do you excel without outshining your teammates? How do you blend in while still standing out?
It's crazy, like looking back at a year ago today or around this time, like I was just beginning my senior year of college. And obviously, you know, people knew who we were and people attended our games, but it's obviously not on the magnitude that it is now.
Yeah.
So like life just changes fast, but that's what makes it fun and cool. And you know, quickly started a new chapter of my life too, like moving here to Indianapolis. And
in an insightful podcast interview, Clark opened up about her rookie year and how she navigated those challenges. Her comments about her teammates will make you reconsider everything you thought you knew about the Indiana Fever. What are her true feelings toward the team around her? From sophomore Aaliyah Boston to Fever's close friend Lexi Hull, and others such as Kelsey Mitchell and Nalissa Smith, we uncover Caitlin's unfiltered thoughts about them. Ready for the inside scoop? Let's dive in.
I mean, it was just a crazy year because you go all the way up to the national championship game and then you're playing right away.
Yeah.
You know, one of my coaches early on in my career said, you know, your rookie year is always so hard because you're in a new city, you're in a new place, you're with a new team, new coaches. There's so much that's not part of the routine that you're so used to. And you had that as like magnified.
Imagine this. Caitlin Clark, the collegiate phenom, steps onto the WNBA court for the very first time. All eyes are fixed on her, with expectations soaring high. However, Clark's greatest obstacle isn't her performance on the court. It's finding her place within the team. During an eye-opening episode of the New Heights podcast, Clark delved into her rookie anxieties. she shared.
But like in my scenario, and obviously you guys too, like you're already highly thought of. Like people are turning to you to like be something or be someone. So it's hard. Like you're trying to get your feet wet, but also not do too much. And I think that's kind of what I struggled in early on is like, I don't know what to say. I don't know how to say it. I don't know how they're going to react.
Pressure was overwhelming, and Clark felt torn between two worlds. She spoke about feeling adrift in the locker room. Should she take the lead or go along with the group? It was a mental battle intensified by her fame. Yet, amidst the turmoil, Clark discovered a positive side. The fast-paced WNBA environment kept her concentrated.
But I think it was good a little bit too. Like you don't have time to overthink things. Like it's just like boom, 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 boom.
Yeah,
like you're just on to the next. But at the same time, like you don't like, I feel like I never really ended the chapter of college. Like it was just like you up and left. But maybe that's good. You don't have a lot of time to think about it. So I think that's definitely the weirdest part of, you know, women's professional basketball and obviously college basketball too. It's just that change, but that's kind of how it has to be too. So it's just different.
Her teammates became her rock during this wild transition. While some teammates caused problems in the beginning, eventually everyone came together to thrive in the WNBA.
For not knowing, you nailed it.
But also, like, I had a lot of really good vets around me too, so I feel very grateful for that. And we had a fairly young team too, so like people had been through it fairly recently, so they knew how I felt. But like, I feel like that definitely is a huge challenge, and that goes for whatever professional sport. Like, you're trying to learn, but also people are looking at you like, you got to perform and like be what they drafted you to be, and that can be tough.
In a heartfelt moment, Clark confessed, "I feel like I never truly closed the chapter of college. It was just like you left. But maybe that's for the best. There isn't much time to dwell on it." This highlighted just how abrupt and challenging the transition to the pros can be, even for a star like Clark.
You mentioned the vets, and I think, you know, for me at least, there was a lot. Some vets were incredible. Some of the vets, obviously, you're competing for jobs, so there's a little bit there, but you lean so much as a young player on your vets, and you lean so much from like, even just like in Philly, there's so many great players that played for the Eagles that, like Harold Carmichael, who was a legendary Philadelphia Eagle, was like always around and willing to lend advice or anything. Did you have many former players or current players like reach out to you that really helped you in transitioning into the WNBA?
As Caitlin Clark continues to navigate the high-pressure world of the WNBA, her journey stands as a powerful example of resilience and growth. From overcoming locker room challenges to embracing the fast-paced professional lifestyle, Clark is not only proving her prowess on the court, but also her ability to build meaningful connections with her teammates. Her honest reflections highlight the complexities of transitioning from college stardom to the pros, reminding us that even the brightest stars face their own set of challenges. What do you think the future holds for Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever?
People in the Fever were like, y'all.
That's not my point. There's a lot of other going on that players are like, this ain't where I want to be.
Over there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Some new shit going on around there.
It's a lot. So you have players that are very significant on this Indiana Fever team that are like, I don't
want to be here.
This is where I want to be.
Yeah.
Remember when Cheryl Swoops said this? DeWanna Bonner has finally broken her 6-month Twitter silence. But she didn't just drop a casual, "Hey, I'm back" tweet. Oh no, she made a statement so bold, it rattled the entire WNBA. Not only is she officially joining the Indiana Fever, but she's also dismantling one of the league's most worn-out, unfounded narratives. The claim that Caitlin Clark and Indiana Fever fans are toxic. That narrative? Gone. Destroyed.
This WNBA offseason killed a lot of narratives, right? It really did. And I hope they're gone for good. And I hope we spend so much less time discussing nonsense. But I think we've seen it stamped out this offseason. And one of those narratives was people wouldn't want to go to the Fever because of the Fever fan base.
You might be thinking, hold up, isn't this the team everyone loves to hate? The one players are supposedly dodging? Well, Bonner's not here for that. She saw the nonsense coming from supposed legend Cheryl Swoops. the never-ending social media drama, and the same old tired talking points. Instead of staying silent, she's stepping up to set the record straight.
To all the crazy people on social media calling her every name under the sun because she chose to play in Indiana. These are the same people that are like, oh, she'll never play in Indiana for obvious reasons. And she went and defended the Indiana fans and was like, talking about, she was basically like, talking positively about the fans that were interacting with her positively, and was responding to one of the crazy posts about her being like, I'm getting screenshots of things you were saying about me. Can you just stop?
Picture this. Bonner casually scrolling through her phone, likely enjoying a peaceful moment when she comes across yet another wave of misinformation, fans wondering why she'd join Indiana, analysts still holding on to the outdated belief that no one wants to play for the Fever. Instead of brushing it off, Bonner did something way more impactful.
It goes to show you that I think hopefully all that stuff has been put in the rear view. And of course, Bonner is a pro.
She didn't just respond, she shut it down with one flawlessly crafted tweet. It wasn't just about defending herself. She went all in for Indiana Fever fans. She basically said, "Y'all are loud, passionate, and real. That's not toxic. That's what true fandom looks like." And just like that, the conversation was over.
I don't get on here often because this app is insanely too much sometimes. I just want to say thank you. Thank you for all the love I've received so far. Deaf, not unnoticed. The love is real.
But she didn't stop there. Bonner called out the hypocrisy, shining a light on the double standard and how fan bases are treated differently. Why is it that when fans from other teams show passion, it's called support? But when Indiana Fever fans do the same, it's suddenly an issue? And why is it that when the Fever start winning and getting national attention, all of a sudden, the haters have a problem with the fans? Bonner wasn't just making a personal statement, she was calling out the league-wide bias that shadowed Indiana ever since Caitlin Clark stepped in.
She's gone online for 2 times. One is to call out the crazy people attacking her right now because she joined the Fever.
This isn't just about fan reactions, it's about respect. Something Indiana Fever fans and players have been denied for way too long. And Bonner? She's done letting the lies slide. What makes this even more powerful is that Bonner isn't some young player chasing attention. She's a legend, a multi-time WNBA champion, and one of the most respected figures in the game. When she speaks, the entire league pays attention. This isn't just another player venting on social media. This is a seasoned veteran, someone who's lived through different eras of WNBA history, stepping up to call out the nonsense and stand up for her new team.
You know, Fever fans are probably starving for that. And I think seeing the validation of the players choosing their team.
Bonner made it crystal clear. Indiana isn't some struggling franchise just trying to stay afloat. With Caitlin Clark at the helm, the Fever are building something special. They're not just aiming to be competitive. They're coming for the top teams in the league, and Bonner is all in on that mission. She's not just joining Indiana, she's becoming part of a movement.
And it's funny because if you're seeing like DeWanna Bonner, if you're seeing like Natasha Howard, on social media, Natasha Howard's posts are getting 100 times more likes, and DeWanna Bonner's being reacted more positively probably than she ever has been in her career.
And the best part? The response to her tweet has been huge. Indiana Fever fans are backing her like never before, and the same people who swore nobody wanted to play for Indiana, they're all of a sudden silent. Cheryl Swoops? Nowhere to be found.
What it do, peeps? Cheryl Swoops is been missing. Cheryl Swoops is MIA. They got a APB out for Cheryl Swoops. If you see Cheryl Swoops, she did a lot of talking a few months ago about the Indiana Fever, the locker room environment, how people didn't want to play there, how people wanted to leave.
Now, all that's left is to watch the haters scramble to rewrite history. They'll act like they never claimed Indiana wasn't a desirable team. They'll pretend they weren't downplaying Caitlin Clark's impact. But at this point, it's too late. The Indiana Fever have already won the battle off the court, and now they're gearing up to take it to the court too.
That thank you from DeWanna Bonner, being olive branch to us all, to focus on the basketball. But I did think it was worth sharing simply because I know a lot of those fans, the new fans, felt rejected and beaten down a lot. And I think this is symbolic.
DeWanna Bonner, Caitlin Clark, and the Fever aren't just putting together a team. They're rewriting the future of the WNBA. And if the rest of the league isn't paying attention yet, they'll be forced to soon. You've probably heard all the noise about the Indiana Fever fan base, right? The narrative that their fans are supposedly toxic or too intense, and that players are supposedly dodging the team because of it. Well, let's be real here. That storyline fell apart quicker than a bad defensive rotation. And you know who kicked this whole mess off? Alyssa Thomas? Yep, Bonner's own wife was out here stirring the pot, claiming that Fever fans were so unbearable, players wanted nothing to do with Indiana.
In my 11-year career, I've never experienced the racial comments from the Indiana Fever fan base. We had her face on a serious matter that happened in this world, and it's unacceptable, honestly. And there's no place for it, and we've been professional throughout the whole entire thing, but I've never been called the things that I've been called on social media.
Here's the plot twist. Despite all that noise, star players aren't running from the Fever. They're running toward them. DeWanna Bonner, Natasha Howard, Sophie Cunningham, and Sydney Colson didn't just sign with the team. They embraced it. These aren't just role players looking for minutes on a struggling franchise. These are battle-tested veterans and high-impact stars who saw all the headlines about a so-called bad fan base and still said, yeah, I want to be part of that.
No argument that the Fever are a great basketball destination, that Caitlin Clark is a great basketball.
Let's talk numbers, because, as always, they don't lie. Indiana Fever fan engagement is off the charts. We're talking sold-out arenas, merchandise flying off the shelves, and social media interaction hitting record highs. This isn't some struggling franchise barely hanging on. This is a team that's become the pulse of the WNBA, and at the heart of it all is Caitlin Clark. She's not just attracting new fans, she's turning casual viewers into die-hard supporters.
The Fever fan base, being painted with this broad brushstroke, was always just stupid, really. There's no other word for it, because Caitlin Clark brought more fans to the league than it's ever seen. So many of them are Fever fans, and the new fans that come in outnumber the old fans that were already there. You don't want to tell those people they're unwelcome.
Think about how absurd this all sounds. Just a few years ago, Indiana was written off as an afterthought in the WNBA. Now, they're the hottest ticket in town. It's like judging an entire restaurant off one bad Yelp review. It just doesn't make sense. The reality is, every team's got a few bad apples in their fan base. That's just sports. But to act like Indiana's supporters are some kind of exception, that's just reaching. So what's really going on here? Why are people so quick to attack Fever fans? The answer's simple. Because Indiana is winning. Not just on the court, but in the fight for relevance, attention, and influence. They're no longer an afterthought, and that makes some people uneasy. Instead of acknowledging that Indiana Fever fans are the heart of something special, the haters would rather push this weird, baseless narrative that players don't want to play there.
And a lot of fans, I think, felt unwelcome as a result of that, because when you look at every sport and every fan base, there are going to be bad apples. With every group of people, there are. And the larger that group becomes, of course, then the larger the small percentage of bad apples are. But if you've ever followed sports, you see people acting stupid online or even live at games.
And yet, reality paints a different picture. If Indiana Fever fans were really that bad, why are top-tier players lining up to sign contracts? Would DeWanna Bonner, a multi-time champion, choose to finish her career in a place where she felt unwanted? Would Natasha Howard, a former Defensive Player of the Year, commit to a team with a toxic culture? The answer is clear. These players see something the haters refuse to admit. The WNBA landscape is shifting, and Indiana is right at the center of it. Just a year ago, people laughed at the idea of the Fever being a desirable destination. Now, they're scrambling to figure out how everything changed so fast. Caitlin Clark isn't just a generational talent. She's a headline magnet, a sellout machine, and the kind of player who makes a franchise relevant overnight.
She'll be the biggest female star ever because she can pull up from the parking lot.
She is a killer. She is stone cold.
Caitlin, man, she's a phenomenon. She's the best female collegiate player ever.
Caitlin Clark is capable of magical things.
Caitlin Clark is continuously setting new benchmarks as a trailblazer in women's basketball by revealing a surprising element in her Fever contract. Celebrated for her exceptional talent and leadership on the court, she's now making significant impacts off the court as well. The basketball community is abuzz after an unexpected detail of her Fever contract surfaced, and honestly, it's a game changer. Not only for Caitlin, but also for the future of how athletes manage their careers.
Knowing that before Caitlin was Rihanna and Diana and Sue and Rebecca and all of those, Dawn Staley as a player, where does it go? Can it continue to climb, and will it climb on the back of now Paige Bueckers?
For anyone questioning the Caitlin Clark effect, we now have people wanting to watch golf because of her. We saw the kind of offer that Ice Cube made to Caitlin to play in the Big Three. That is $5 million to play 3 months.
Caitlin Clark continues to set new standards in women's basketball by unveiling a groundbreaking detail in her Fever contract. Renowned for her unparalleled talent and leadership on the court, she's now making significant strides off the court as well. The basketball community is abuzz after revealing an unexpected aspect of her Fever contract, and it's a game changer, not just for Caitlin, but for the future of athletes' career management. The Iowa standout has always been ahead of her time, proving she's not just playing basketball, she's elevating the sport itself. What exactly did she disclose, and why is everyone talking about it? Caitlin Clark secured a $28 million deal with the Indiana Fever, setting a standard for how athletes can leverage their influence. According to insiders and Caitlin herself, her contract includes enhanced travel accommodations, personalized support staff, and resources dedicated to her holistic development as a player and leader. At just 22, she's the only professional women's basketball player on the Forbes 30 Under 30 list. Unlike standard team travel arrangements, Caitlin's contract allows her to optimize her schedule and performance, ensuring she can shine without unnecessary distractions. In her first year, she will earn $76,535, along with access to nutritionists, trainers, and mental performance coaches. This reflects the Fever's commitment to player well-being and long-term career sustainability. Reactions have been overwhelmingly positive, with teammates showing genuine support. One player even joked, "If Caitlin's getting all these perks, we'd better start winning more games to keep up." From management's perspective, the Fever's general manager described the contract as a bold step toward redefining excellence in women's basketball. Investing in Caitlin's development is also investing in the future of the league. Fans have praised the move on social media, celebrating Caitlin's role in pushing boundaries and inspiring others. Young athletes everywhere are watching Caitlin's journey and learning that it's okay to demand more. She's not just breaking records, but also breaking barriers, embodying empowerment and leadership. Caitlin handles the spotlight with grace, crediting her teammates and the Fever for believing in her vision. This collective triumph highlights the power of teamwork and innovation. Looking ahead, Caitlin Clark is more than an athlete. She's a trailblazer and a symbol of what's possible when talent meets determination. Her contract with the Fever is a statement of intent, declaring that the future of women's basketball is bright and boundless. By securing provisions that emphasize personal development and well-being, Caitlin is demonstrating that excellence on the court should be matched off the court. The Fever's decision to support her vision marks a cultural shift in women's sports, historically undervalued and under-resourced. Caitlin's contract signals to other franchises and sponsors that investing in female athletes is both ethical and profitable. This move is reminiscent of the legendary Bird Magic rivalry, sparking excitement and essential competition. The domino effect is already taking shape, with other WNBA players exploring similar contract clauses. Younger players are dreaming bigger, inspired by Caitlin's bold move. She advocates not just for her growth, but for the growth of women's basketball as a whole, creating a path for the next generation to thrive. Caitlin Clark has concluded one of the most remarkable years in basketball, backing up her words with actions. She plans to mentor young players and engage in community outreach, creating a transformative ripple effect. Despite critics questioning team equality, Caitlin's approach benefits everyone by enhancing team performance and league recognition. Caitlin's journey is far from over, and this contract is just one chapter in her incredible story. Whether you're a fan or inspired by her drive, there's no denying she's making a lasting impact. Here's to Caitlin Clark, a star on the court, a leader off it, and a true pioneer in every sense of the word.
I feel like I'm getting hammered.
Last season, Caitlin Clark faced cheap shots, constant hacking, and defenders who thought they could muscle their way into shutting her down. Well, guess what? That chapter is officially closed. The Indiana Fever have loaded up with not one, not two, but 3 enforcers who won't stand for any of that nonsense anymore.
So the Indiana Fever have got their enforcer. They have got their enforcer for Caitlin Clark. And I'm not gonna lie, like, when it comes to Caitlin Clark and their enforcer, last year everyone was talking about them needing an enforcer.
Enter Howard, Cunningham, and Bonner, veterans with attitude. If critics think they can bully Clark, they'll have to get past them first.
The closest thing they had was Erica Wheeler. That was the closest thing they had for someone to defend Caitlin Clark, was Erica freaking Wheeler. Maybe Tammy, but Caitlin Clark was getting hit a lot. She was getting hit a lot early, and they needed their Charles Oakley.
This move isn't just about talent, it's a statement. The Fever aren't here to compete. They're here to dominate. With these new additions, they've built a squad that plays fast, tough, and, most importantly, protects Clark. Her bullies on notice? So how will these 3 transform the Fever into a WNBA powerhouse?
Sometimes you need one of those players on your team. You need one of those enforcers. Every good player, by the way. Every good player, every good team that is a super duper star. Most of the time have enforcer type players.
Picture this. Caitlin Clark, the WNBA's most electrifying rookie, steps onto the court for her debut. Fans are buzzing, expecting a show. Instead, hard fouls, excessive contact, and physicality that seemed aimed at taking her down. What's going on here?
That's all I see. They try so long to get respect for women's basketball, and then they treat it like a junior high school girl's locker room. Junior high school girl antics on the court.
Clark wasn't just a rookie. She was targeted, with 17% of all flagrant fouls last season against her, proving defenders weren't just playing defense. They were trying to take her down.
Now, what little girl wants to grow up and play in a league where you're targeted like that? How do you sit here and profess and demand that everyone take women's sports seriously when you can't even take it seriously enough to not act like a junior high queen on the court? It looks like a soap opera.
And leading the charge? The Chicago Sky. A shocking 80% of those flagrant fouls came from one team. That's no coincidence. It's a statement. They weren't just defending, they were sending a message. Was it intimidation, frustration, or just a desperate attempt to slow a rising star? Whatever the reason, Clark's presence clearly made them uncomfortable.
Clark! Hammer!
Clark drives, Reese floors her. Silence. Was it too much? Commentators wondered. but Clark shook it off and kept playing.
I think we went up really strong a lot of times and we didn't get a lot of calls. And going back and looking at the film, I've seen a lot of calls that weren't made. I guess some people got a special whistle.
That's what makes Clark special, her composure. After a cheap shot from Kennedy Carter, she simply said, "That's not a basketball play, but gotta play through it." No complaints, no retaliation, just pure mental toughness.
And Clark. I mean, that's clearly a foul, which was called. The question is, will they call it unnecessary? Kennedy Carter.
Clark proved she could take the hits, but the Fever knew she needed protection. So they made moves, big ones. With some serious enforcers now on the roster, no one's bullying Clark anymore. Who are they? And how will they change the Fever's dynamic?
The signing of Natasha Howard represents a massive step forward for the Indiana Fever and their quest for a championship. In Howard, the Fever gain a 3-time WNBA champion, a Defensive Player of the Year, an All-Star, and a veteran with more than 300 games played.
Natasha Howard isn't just an addition, she's the enforcer the Fever needed. From day one, the message was clear. Clark's no longer an easy target. A 3-time champ, former Defensive Player of the Year, Howard's toughness will end the days of Clark getting bullied.
But all of that, and we haven't yet touched upon what Howard does best: defend. Howard was named Defensive Player of the Year in 2019 and has finished in the top 10 of the Defensive Player of the Year voting 3 times in her career. Howard has averaged at least 1 block and 1 steal per game in each of her last 7 seasons. And that versatility is really what makes her a weapon on defense.
Last season, Clark faced nonstop physicality, but now defenders will think twice. Howard alone shifts the power dynamic. She commands respect next to Clark, and with her elite stats, 17.6 points, 6.7 rebounds, and a 3-point threat, she'll create more space for Clark, Mitchell, and Boston.
Last season, with a minimum of 25 games played, Natasha Howard was one of just 13 players to average 18 points per game. She was one of 16 players to average 7 rebounds per game. And the list of players to average both 18 and 7 last year, short and elite: Asia Wilson, Brianna Stewart, Nafisa Collier, Brittany Griner, and yes, Natasha Howard.
Howard's defense is where she truly dominates. A former Defensive Player of the Year, she's a nightmare in the paint.
But that wingspan and 6'2" height allows her to be disruptive defensively around the rim on opposing bigs too. In fact, Howard will enter the 2025 season 25th all-time in blocks in WNBA history.
Howard's ready to elevate Clark in the Fever, bringing her experience and toughness to help them dominate, not just fight back.
Caitlin Clark was getting hit a lot. She was getting hit a lot early, and they needed their Charles Oakley. You've got that in Sophie Cunningham.
Sophie Cunningham is heading to Indiana, making the WNBA even more exciting. If Clark needed someone to keep the bullies in check and hit threes, she's got her.
There were there are so many videos of Sophie Cunningham just starting brawls.
Some might ask, Cunningham? Wasn't she bringing Clark to Phoenix? Clark had other plans, ensuring Cunningham joined her in Indiana.
Sophie Cunningham, in general, is just wild. Wild is the best word I can use to describe Sophie Cunningham. And it is just, it's carnage. It's carnage a lot of time when Sophie Cunningham gets involved with anything. The amount of fights that Sophie Cunningham has been involved in is mental.
Cunningham is a perfect fit for Indiana. She's not just tough, she's an elite shooter, hitting 37.8% from deep last season. With Clark running the offense, that number will rise.
If she hits a 3, Maisha Hines-Allen fouls her and then tries to step over, and then Sophie Cunningham grabs her leg. Nobody's going near Maisha Hines-Allen, but no, Sophie Cunningham will start the fight. The refs are trying to break it up. None of the Mercury players are going to go near Maisha Hines-Allen. They're scared. She'll scare the bejesus out of them. Maisha Hines-Allen is one of the toughest players in this league. Sophie Cunningham going head to head straight with her.
Cunningham brings more than shooting. She's got an edge. She plays through contact, talks trash, and backs it up. Plus, she's a Taekwondo black belt.
Like Sophie Cunningham, there are so many things where it's like, part of it her fault, part of it not her fault, but she will not back down. She will not back down
under any circumstances from anything. And that is what the Indiana Fever need. If somebody hits Caitlin Clark, if somebody does what Victoria Vivians did to Caitlin Clark, it's not going to be Caitlin Clark that's getting involved to be teed up. Sophie Cunningham's in there. You take the technical foul. You take it.
Cunningham adds versatility to the Fever's lineup as a wing who can shoot, defend, and provide leadership, averaging 8.4 points, 3.9 rebounds, and 2.0 assists last season.
Like, Sophie Cunningham is guarding the screen here, and she just takes a hard hit, nothing major, so she's down, and then after taking a hard hit, just gets back up and laughs. A bit.
Cunningham thrives in high-pressure moments, bringing toughness, experience, and fearlessness. Whether it's hitting a clutch three, locking down a guard, or stepping up when things get chippy.
She takes the hard hit and goes down, obviously, gets back up and just laughs. Like, that's a legitimate thing where you're like, okay, yeah, this is a person who is just, like, there is a toughness there with Sophie Cunningham. And, like, she's not scared.
Cunningham's presence ensures defenses can't collapse on Clark and Boston, as her perimeter shooting ability forces teams to think twice about doubling Clark, making the Fever's offense even more dangerous.
So, yeah, like, a solid signing for what she does on the floor. But, like, the protecting Caitlin Clark type thing.
The big question is how Cunningham's aggressive style will mesh with Clark's finesse. But one thing's for sure, Indiana just got a lot tougher, and the rest of the WNBA better take notice.
She's just a smart player. You already see what she's done in her rookie season, and I think she gets the ball to people in the right positions to help them be successful, so that's huge. And I'm hoping that I can give her a little bit more leadership and knowledge for her to understand this league a little bit better. And like I said, when playoffs hit, she'll be ready.
DeWanna Bonner isn't just joining the Fever. She's here to reshape their culture and bring championship experience, making it clear Indiana is ready to win now.
Our first game in Indiana, we got to get a win.
Bonner's addition turns the Fever from an exciting young team into a championship contender, adding elite defense, clutch scoring, and floor spacing alongside Boston, Clark, Mitchell, and Cunningham.
What excites you the most about this team that you're going to be joining?
I mean, they have dynamic pieces in CC and Kelsey Mitchell and AB, Lexi Hall. I mean, they have a great core, so why not just add to that and try to, take us to the next level in the playoffs. They were in first round, and I played against them in the first round, and the way they came back the second game, it just makes you excited to, okay, I want to be a part of that. They didn't lay down and quit. They came back and actually try to beat us really, that next game.
Bonner's not just a skilled player. She's a true leader, elevating Clark, Boston, and Mitchell by studying their game and maximizing their strengths.
Like I said, hopefully I can make her job a little easier and she can make mine a little easier. But I think she's a great person, and we, been kind of connecting here. We had a great workout this morning, and it was fun. She's a fun kid.
Bonner sees something special in Clark's competitive fire and is ready to guide her towards superstardom, using her experience to push Clark to new heights.
Kind of went on this crazy run, and they were the most well-gelled team at that time. They went from the bottom straight, and they just kept trending. And it was like one of those teams you're like, man, you don't want to really see them in the playoffs. So we got the matchup, and I think our experience helped us very well. But that second game, they came out, and it was like, yeah, they just kind of went on this trajectory that was just like on the rise, and it was literally Fever on the rise during right after All-Star. So that's exciting. That's exciting for me to see, and that kind of helped me with my decision.
Last season, the Fever lacked experience, but Bonner brings postseason know-how, leadership, and the ability to close games, all while elevating Clark to new heights.
That experience to a young, maturing team, what can you provide?
I'm hoping that I can provide a little bit of leadership, but I feel like they're a team that last year helped them a lot and understand the dynamics of playoffs. It's a whole different ball game when playoffs come, and I feel like they're a young team, but they're a good team, and hopefully I can just provide the knowledge and explain playoffs to them a little bit better so we can be better prepared and don't get punched in the face the first game. And it's hard to come back when you do that the first game. It's hard to come back and try to win 2 straight against a veteran team. So I think they got it.
What does Bonner's arrival mean for Indiana? everything. Her playoff experience and championship mindset are the missing pieces for a team on the rise. This isn't just a veteran signing. It's a statement that the Fever are done waiting. The future is now. With Bonner, Clark, Boston, and Mitchell, this team isn't just fun to watch, it's a contender. Are you ready for the Indiana Fever show? It's coming fast.